Brilliant. Thanks, Jill. And just to remind everyone, this is really informal today, so don't expect our usual slick presentations. And I'm a bit clunky on Zoom, so I will apologise for that. I'm a bit of a Teams native, so I've got to change camera view a few times as we go through. And you'll have detected this is the employer audit briefing event for 23-24 cycle. So if you were expecting a different event, then now's the time to leave. But I note that we're up to 45 participants, so hopefully everyone's in the right brief. Just so those of you who I've not met, and there are a lot of familiar faces and names on the call, I'm Mark Cameron. I'm the Chief Executive of the 5% Club, and I've been involved with the 5% Club since 2018 and as Chief Executive since 2021. And it's a delight to have so many of you here interested in our employer audit cycle for 2023-24, and also the UK National Employer Earn and Learn Awards, which were all part of that process. And what I'll do in the next probably 20 or 25 minutes is take you through step by step what the employer audit process will constitute. I know many of you online have gone through the process a couple of times before, or at least once before, and many of you are new. So there's a few old hands in the room today, but also I know there's a lot of you that are new to this. So we'll take you through the process. But as a starter, just to show you where the employer audit sits, we did an event last week, or a couple of weeks ago, where we launched this year's employer audit, and we had Anthony Knowles from the Department for Education on the call. And Anthony very much sees where the employer audit sits is after things like the National Apprenticeship Service Top 100 Employers, or the National Apprenticeship Service Top 50 Apprenticeship Employer Awards, where people get an award, but they don't get a huge amount of feedback. And what you get with the employer audit, and we'll go through that, is yes, you get some accreditation, but hopefully you also get lots of insight, lots of networking, and most important, as people are looking at their employer branding, lots of kudos as an employer for doing great things. And it's interesting that this is Gillian Keegan. Many of you will know her as the Secretary of State for Education. Actually, the quote here is when she was Minister for Skills, but she actually photobombed our celebration event at the House of Lords last year. Wandered in, and I took the opportunity to wheel her straight across and put her in front of the employer audit signs. But she was delighted to come in. She looked us up, looked us out, and she was instrumental in the Department for Education going into the employer audit. And she's told us that she had her way, all government departments would do it, not just the Department for Education and the Ministry of Defence. So she's a great advocate of this, and great advocate for skills in general, given her background and, of course, her current role. So what we're doing is endorse at the top of the shop, and you'll see a bit later on that Robert Halfon has also been heavily involved in what we do. What is the employer audit? Well, it starts off with recognition, and it's all about an employer award. But actually what we find is once people get an award, what people want to do is, how can I improve on that award? How can I improve as an organisation? What insights can I gain from the activity? And where we've taken the audit, which is different from many other schemes, is you do actually get a comprehensive report that benchmarks the data you provided us with the other participants in the audit process. And a lot of people find that very, very helpful, and I'll come on to the reasons for that in a moment. And also we include in that annual awards. So not only do you get your bronze, silver or gold, or for some this year, for the first time, the platinum award, which is for those who've been involved in the process for 3 years and are getting above 10% of their workforce in Earn and Learn. But also automatically you're entered into our UK National Employer Earn and Learn Awards. There's no further submissions to write. So the data set you put in for the audit process is used in an automated way to make those awards. And I'll come on to those in a moment. You get a nice plaque, and they're announced in the latter part of the process. What is the employer audit? Well, the employer audit looks at the 5 areas that we in the 5% Club think are pretty important when it comes to successful Earn and Learn schemes. So we start off, the whole thing at the bottom is built on the levels of employment. We're the 5% Club. We advocate for increased volumes of workplace learning, and clearly we want to reward companies who hit that 5% target or are on the way to it. So the basis of the bronze, silver or gold award is linked to the achievement or the route to achievement of 5% of the workforce in Earn and Learn. And on average, in the last 2 years of the scheme, we're now in our 3rd year, about 80% of participants achieve the gold standard, which is a really powerful testament to the kind of members we've got. So that's the first part, which is the percentage. Breadth and balance examines the range of schemes people offer, which is across the things that are important to us in the 5% club, like apprenticeships, grad schemes, sponsored students, but increasingly we ask questions around T-levels and other schemes. We look at inclusion and social mobility, and if I'm honest, that's the area that quite a lot of people struggle with to get the quality of data. But actually, if you don't or aren't able to provide data, that allows you to benchmark yourself with a similar number of employers that also can provide that data. So that in itself gives you insight. And we also look at quality. And those of you who track some of the research reports that we've been involved in, the OU, for instance, have recently commented on the fact that in the 5% club, the quality completion rates is significantly higher than in other employers. And we believe that's because it's employers getting together and comparing notes. And then the final aspect is the areas of future growth. What are your plans for growth over the coming years? And that's the basis of the actual audit itself. Right, this is where it gets complicated for me, so just bear with me while I change a few screens. What we have, and we'll share this, and I know Jill and Helen will be putting this in the chat, but we have a PDF copy of the questionnaire. It's an open book exam, there are no surprises, and there's 10 questions. And again, those of you who are familiar with the National Apprenticeship Service top 100 or top 50 employers, SME employers, you'll recognise the form, and the questions we pose are not dissimilar in style to those that you're asked to fill in for those awards. And we go through basically, you know, what kind of apprenticeships you've got, what kind of grad schemes you offer, how many people you have in those various roles, what were your completion rates, what are your protected characteristics data, and what are your plans for growth. And then the only subjective question in there is what other awards have you been awarded, and that's just a nice roll of honour, as it were, to look at the other awards that participants in the audit get. But that final one is the only subjective data you put in. The rest of it is just physical data. And what we found from the first 2 years of the audit process is, on average, pulling together the data to answer these questions and putting the data through the portal takes in total about 3 hours. And that's a great part of this scheme, which is it's really accessible because we recognise just how busy everybody is, and not everybody's got lots of time to fill in the activities. And of course, as I say, it's an open book exam. So as part of the documents you'll receive on the back of this briefing is we'll send you a copy of this questionnaire, so you can start to look and collate the data ahead of the portal opening, and I'll go through that process. Of course, that's if you decide to participate in the scheme, which we're hoping you will do. So that's the actual questionnaire itself. Just bear with me, I'll go back to the presentation. So that's the actual questionnaire. Like I say, relatively easy to complete. And once you've completed the questionnaire, because you sort of know what the exam question is, you should be able to work out yourself what grade of membership you'll be awarded. So the bronze membership shown here is for up to 2.5% of your workforce in Earn and Learn. Silver is up to 5%. Gold is above 5%. And this year, we're awarding platinum because it's our 10th anniversary year. And that's for employers who've achieved the gold standard 3 years on the trot, and in that 3rd year of being of achieving the gold standard, have got above 10% of the workforce in Earn and Learn schemes. And we think of the hopefully 200 or so companies who will participate in the scheme this year, about 20 will be in the running for platinum, having started with us 2 years ago. So platinum is obviously a lot harder to achieve. And like I said in the preamble, the gold standard is generally achieved by about 80% of participants. But there's no right or wrong answer. So whether it's a bronze, silver or gold, all participants are setting themselves apart from other employers by going through the process and benchmarking themselves. And even if you're a bronze bronze member, you might be excelling in other areas, and there's a lot for others to learn from you. And like I say, we're ambivalent to the grade, and you should be. It's all about progress, and it's all about betterment, and it's all about the insight that you as an organisation achieve from going through the process. And everyone is accorded with the same media packs, the same recognition, the same participation in all the various activities. So that's the recognition. Again, just bear with me whilst we go into a research report. And once the questionnaires been gone through and you've put your data in, and High Flyers Research, who collate all the information for us, have run the data, then you'll get a benchmark report that looks just like this. So you get a standard sort of thing, shows you who's participated in that report, takes you through the methodology, takes you into the areas of employment, and then it will start to give you a whole series of graphs like this. So you'll see this is a set of graphs for a generic company, and in absolute numbers, that organisation has got, you know, a large number of employees, so comparatively large, and therefore a fairly large number of people on earn and learn. So if you were to look at it as an absolute number, they're doing pretty well. They're right towards the top, but that's just a scale issue. But then when it comes to the award they gain and where they sit, actually you'll see that as a percentage of the workforce, they're not faring quite as well in comparison to others. And this was real data from the first year, but you can see, you know, some organisations are achieving in excess of 20% of the organisation in earn and learn schemes, and others aren't. Like I say, there's no right or wrong answer. This is all about comparing data. And what we're starting to see, as the number of participants in the scheme grows, then what we'll start to be able to do, and hopefully we can do it this year, is highlight your organisation there, and then show other organisations in the same sector as you. So not only can you benchmark yourself against the totality of all employers, but you can see exactly where you stand against effectively your competitors. And that's the nature of the report. There's 5 chapters, and that takes you through and gives you all the data and the insights that you can draw from that. And what we found is that really stimulates discussion, particularly, as I alluded to earlier, when it comes to the protected characteristics and social mobility data. Because actually, when you look at the bar charts for those, the numbers who are able to provide the data is markedly lower than the total who participate. And actually, the benchmark in there is, if you're an organisation that struggles with that data, we're not alone. Other organisations struggle with that data, and then we can put you in touch with organisations that are using the data, and that's how you can look to improve and how you take the insight forward into the associated action planning. And then the bit that everyone's interested in, but I can tell you that the interest as an organisation dissipates once you've got the award. You want to get the insights, but of course you want to know exactly how you fared against other organisations who participated. And again, this is the roll of honour from year one. This is when this sample report was produced. Obviously, the report is a lot bigger than this. This is just a sort of a generic report, but it just gives you an idea of the kind of data and insights you'll get. So I'll just go back to the presentation. Hopefully you're all with me. I see there's things going into chat, so that's good. So that's the research report, and the research report, they're collated in sort of September, October, and we start to publish those reports to you towards the end of September, October time. There's no huge issue in terms of timing, so long as, though, you've got those reports ahead of the symposium. So the next big aspect that we go through is the online symposium, and that's where we get our experts. Our research director, Martin Birchill, from High Flyers Research, will actually go through the data from this year's event, and probably, now that we've got the previous data, set it in context with previous years. And what you find is it's a really rich event. It's done online, and it's completely unlimited, the amount of people from your organisation who can attend that event. And of course, it's recorded, so you can play it back later. But it's a really rich discussion around the data that comes out of the 2023 employer audit. And we hold that online on purpose, because what we find is, because there's so much data, the online forum is far better to go through that kind of information and get the information across, and people can look at it, review it, replay it, and it's a great forum. So it's online. It will remain online because it's a data-rich activity. But there is, of course, a networking event, and I'll come on to that in a moment. In fact, I'll come on to that now. So what we've done is we've separated in a sort of a conference setting the data, imparting all the data and the insights to you from the celebration event. And the celebration event, so the symposium is on the 9th of November. Celebration event will be held on the 29th of November. And this year we've had to shift it to the Mansion House, not because we don't like the House of Lords, but we sort of outgrown the House of Lords. And what we find is people really want to attend the celebration event. It's a great opportunity to travel, to gain. You can see the kind of pictures here that we encourage people to take, that we'll take them for you. They're all done in high quality. We'll send them to you, and we encourage you to shout about what you've achieved online so that others can see just exactly how you what you've achieved and how you've achieved that. And that media and PR activities are really a double hit, because of course at the symposium you'll know whether you're bronze, silver, gold or platinum, you can do a whole bunch of media which we support around the symposium event, and then you've got the celebration event where you get a second bite of the cherry in order to go through that whole process again, and of course network with other people. And at the celebration event, not only do we we celebrate the fact you've been bronze, silver, gold or platinum, but we also have the UK National Earn and Learn Employer Awards, or National Employer Earn and Learn Awards. So I'll come back to the certificates. So these are the awards. You won't find out until the day whether you've won an award, but they're high quality awards presented to you in this sort of form. They'll have your name, the 5% Club, who the sponsor for it was in that year. And actually, there's a whole bunch of photo opportunities and media coverage that we go through. And we're hoping, obviously, to get a VIP there to the presentation. If not, it'll be one of our sponsors who'll do that for you. But again, it's a great addition to what we're offering. And I sort of gave it away in the previous slide, but also we give you that sort of company certificate. And these were examples of certificates awarded last year, which allow you to put it in your corporate HQ. And again, take pictures of them, publish it online, get that employer branding and PR activity going, because we want you to sing about the success you're achieving. And we want you to be able to go out and tell everyone, how great you are, what you've achieved, and how, working with colleagues in the 5% Club is really helping you gain insights and do that action planning. So that's what happens in this year's cycle, and that takes you up to the 29th of November. But actually what we also now do is we've got a summary report, which we actually only published for last year, last week. And what we do in the summary report is it allows us and gives us a great opportunity. And again, all of these reports, all of the slides will be in chat and be shared with you. But the summary report is in a similar sort of looking format to all the other reports, but it just gives a précis of what we found in the research cycle in the 2023-24 research cycle. So the one we published last week covered the first 2 years, and now every year we'll be pushing that forward. It's great for you all to get it, because it allows you to look at what's been going on. It allows others who are outside of the employer audit to see who's been in the employer audit, what participation is, what the key findings are. And again, we'll share this with you, but it gives a summary of all of the various categories that I've been talking about. But what we also do is we've got this rolling roll of honour, for want of a better phrase, which shows whether you're double gold, bronze, silver, or indeed next year platinum. But again, once we publish that, it gives you another opportunity to do the employer branding and to be proud in what you've achieved, so that you can see not only are we pushing out the research and the insights, but we're also giving you great opportunity to showcase what you as an employer are doing, which is particularly important when it comes to employer branding in a competitive jobs market. And again, this report will be published in chat, so you can see that. Not long to go now, I do promise, and then we can go into questions. So I said it'd be about 20 to 25 minutes, so we're broadly on track. So that's the report that's published next year. So you can see the participation in the process is a good year-long cycle with lots of opportunities to celebrate what you've been achieving throughout the actual process. So what are the next steps? Well, you're here, you've been enticed in by the prospect of the audit. And actually where we are is we're open for registrations up until the end of June. We've been talking to the research team, and I think at last count we were just over 90 participants already, which is sort of double where we were this time last year. But on the week commencing the 12th of June, High Flyers will open the portals for those who've registered to go through the research portal and actually take the data you've collated against that PDF questionnaire and put it into the digital census portal. And that portal remains open until the 31st of July, which is the census point, although there is a degree of discussion around the census point if, for instance, the 31st of July happens to be the worst possible date for you to showcase what you achieve, i.e., on the 29th of July, everybody stops their apprenticeship, and on the 1st of August is when you have your next intake. That census date's not sensible. So we do allow a degree of flexibility on that, and where the census points are commercially sensitive as well. So there is a discussion. But broadly speaking, we aim for a census point on the 31st of July, and that's when the portal closes. The reason for that is really so that you guys can get the whole process complete before the summer break. If you do have pressing issues, then by negotiation we can offer a short extension. But for your sanity and the sanity of the teams in High Flyers, it'd be great if we can get the activity completed by the 31st of July. What then happens is the High Flyers team do the verification. So they take your data, they do a piece of desk level research, and they probably follow up with you with a phone call just to validate what you've put in. That phone call is beneficial for you because often it's working in your advantage, i.e. they'll say, well, have you thought of these other elements? So it's not to catch you out, it's to actually help you showcase your data in the best possible light. So that's what they do over the sort of summer period, and then into September, October is when they do the data crunching and produce the reports. And that'll take a bit of time. But once that's complete, then we issue the reports to you. We let you know what grade you've got, but of course you'll know that yourself because you've put the data in, so you'll know if you're above 5% or 2.5%, or indeed 10% for those of you in your third year. You'll get the report. What we do though is ask that you don't share. You can share the information internally within your organisation, but be very grateful if you didn't share that until the day of the symposium. It's just that we quite like to control the revelation. And of course, for those companies who went through the cycle last year and for whatever reason they don't go through the cycle this year, of course, that's the date at which their previous year's membership expires. So there is a bit of sensitivity around the dates. But once you get your report, what we'd ask you to do, you can share that as widely as you want. And like I say, once the symposium date, once we get to 9th of November, we'll give you a media pack to help you shout about what you do on the various channels, and we'll get it in the various media. And then we do the same again after the 29th of November celebration event. And like I say, it's unlimited tickets for the symposium, but it's unfortunately limited to 2 tickets per entrant for the celebration event. And the reason for that is, if you imagine if we get 200 participants, that's 400 people coming to the Mansion House. So that's why that's constrained, for no other reason. And then, like I say, finally, April, May next year, just as we launch next year's cycle, there's a summary report which gives you another opportunity to get that sort of employer branding out there. So that's a quick run through, and I've tried to address some of the questions that we're normally asked. I realise there's a huge amount of data in there, so I'll stop sharing and we'll open the floor for questions.
So far, Mark, no one's asked us anything in chat. Helen's posted all the reports you've referred to. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, feel free to post in chat or put your hand up, hopefully. Sophie, thank you very much. Sophie has said, do we have a list of qualifying schemes? I'm assuming, Sophie, is that under the sponsored student category? I'm thinking you might mean that. So, and
Yes.
Natasha has asked, we have a number of people on HNCs, HNDs, CIPD. Do these qualify, and in which category? And Louise at Co-op, I shall get back to you on that one, on your question.
They're very good questions, and you know, we get asked those all the time, be it around membership of the club or indeed the audit. Apprenticeships are fairly straightforward, grad schemes are fairly straightforward. Sponsored students, generally speaking, we look at sponsored students, which are people employed by you that are on a course, and that course is normally an academic year or longer, and they're working with you. So HNCs, HNDs, the normal thing with a sponsored student is clearly somebody on a degree placement, but there's quite a broad scope, and that's where high flyers, they've got the real detail on that. They can offer more insights. But what it generally is people on standard health and safety style courses, you know, short courses that are 2 or 3 months long.
Thanks, Mark. So a couple more on that. Sophie was just sorry, they're all whizzing in now. Yeah, to clarify the type of educational courses, apprenticeships, paid courses with a qualification. So hopefully that got covered by that one. But Sophie, we can follow up with you separately if you've got any confusion. Debbie Matthews asked about summer interns. Can we include overseas interns? Well, we don't really do interns, Mark.
No. So interns, not really. Like I say, it's normally for an academic year. And interns, even if they're paid, it's only really summer employment. So it's not really in the spirit of the Earn and Learn scheme. If they're longer, then you know, then that's by negotiation. But generally, internships, particularly if they're unpaid, no.
And sort of linked to that, and I'll whiz up to somebody else has asked me something, but the number of graduates, is this graduates on a company scheme only?
So this is graduates on a recognised graduate scheme, as opposed to graduates who are employed but not on a scheme. So I know, you know, there's quite a fine line, and a number of the graduates apply for non-graduate scheme roles, but then they're not in really workplace learning. So it's the formalised grad scheme, which is normally 18 months or 2 years. So that's what we recognise it as a grad scheme. But, you know, again, that's one for discussion with high flyers. But if it's, you know, the number of graduates employed, then, you know, if they're not on a scheme, then you know, then unfortunately no. But you know, work that through with high flyers.
Thanks, Mark. Somebody else is talking about the census deadline. We've obviously said there can be an amendment to that, because they were pointing out they don't always have accurate figures for several weeks after the start of an apprenticeship for apprenticeship starts. So would that be best then to estimate July's figures to ensure they get the data in time, or wait? And I think that the point there is about being consistent year on year as well, Mark, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think it's you know, this isn't new. I don't know the exact detail on that, but high flyers generally work on the principle that, you know, it's places offered up to that census date. If the individuals, you know, haven't started but are due to start on that census date, you know, clearly some people don't start, but actually it's the intended starts, i.e. you've offered a place with a view that someone will actually start on that date. But as I said, also, if that census date happens to be a really fallow period in your overall cycle, then, you know, as long as you go through the process of consistently using a different date, then again you can achieve that with high flyers. What we want you to be able to do is showcase, you know, the point at which you've got a peak of graduates or apprentices. Generally speaking, they're on longer schemes, So, you know, if 31st happens to be the worst, 31st of July happens to be the worst census point, then work with high flyers to get a better one. And as I said, for some organisations where they publish this data and it's commercially sensitive, again, there is an allowance to allow you to use your the data which you commercially publish that data.
Someone asks, we might have to come back on this one definitely, because I'm just Googling it as I'm asking you, Mark. The ASYE program for social workers, does that count? Thank you for that, Kerry. I am Googling because I hadn't heard of that. It sounds like it is a proper year-long program which helps develop skills, knowledge and professional confidence. She says reading off the internet. So it sounds like, Kerry, that would qualify, but perhaps we can come back to you on that. Sophia says, I've 8 graduates starting in September. Can they be included? I think on this one, Mark, again, it's about, obviously, and I'm slightly answering for you, which you don't need me to, but I guess if people have got someone starting in that year that the census measures, then that's fine, because there is the intent that 8 graduates will be starting in September for the year in which we're measuring for the purposes of the audit.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously not cooking the book. So, you know, if you had 8 start last September, you've got 8 starting this September, effectively you could have 2 cohorts in one census period. So a degree of common sense there, but actually, again, it's the discussion point with the desk researcher and high flyers as to whether that's included in this year's data or that forms part of your future plans, and that's about what date you agree to be your census date.
Yeah, brilliant. Richard saying, and again, I think I can answer this one, Mark, you could knock off and go home early. Does chartership count like RICS, APC 24, as in 24 months, CI, OB, the RTPI? My view on that one, Mark, it's a bit like the charterships. A bit like I've just echoed. That does come under the sponsored student piece, doesn't it? I think, because charterships and gaining that.
Yeah, I'm sure because it's a long program, it's part of a formal training program. Then I think we have included those previously.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, again, the point you were just making about the graduate point of if you count people who are joining in September, don't count them twice. Jill was just asked, if we use places offered figure, then I assume that can only be included once.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, Jill, if you are working on what's about to happen, just use it in one cycle, so to speak, and then it becomes a consistent year-on-year comparative figure. And Helen's just said if anyone's got any queries to email her, and we can get back to people on any further clarification. I think they're the only questions. I don't think I'm missing. I hope I haven't missed anyone, because I've been zipping up and down a bit in Q&A. So if I haven't answered your question, quickly flag it up. Any other questions? We can ping on all those things to everyone. We're very happy to talk one-to-one about things as well. When you're completing the questionnaire, as Mark said, high flyers can clarify. I don't think there are any other. Oh, someone just questioned. Oh, will we be sharing the slides? Yes, and there's a recording, Marty, as well. If you've missed bits, you can sort of just put this on in the background and listen to the bit you missed as well. So yeah, we can share slides and share the recording. That's it.
And I think, you know, what I would say is, you know, this is informal. It feels quite formal when you're sat here with a wall of names in front of you. But actually, this is really informal. We're very open to discussion. And you've got the 3 members of our executive team, Jill, Helen and myself. You know, feel free to drop us an email and we'll come back to you with an answer to the best of our knowledge. And if we can't answer that immediately and we just go to high flyers, then that'll be fine. But generally speaking, as I started, this is not about trying to catch anyone out. This is about helping you showcase what you're doing as employers in the most positive way, and to give you a really comprehensive service for not a huge amount of cost or in terms of money, but most importantly in effort and your time.
Just clarifying again for someone who was just saying I think it's this point about someone saying they've got apprentices starting in September, received offers, confirmed joining us. Are we okay to count them or next cycle? Yeah, it's your decision. But if you count them in the year where we're about to measure for 23, 24, yes, just count them once. Just to clarify that again, someone was just asking. So, and again, Mark, I don't know if you talked about the amazing response we've already had this year. Lots of new people have joined the audit, which we're really excited about. We're not far off knocking on 100 already signed up, so it's very exciting for us.
Yeah, so you know, for those of you who are new to this, we launched the scheme in 2021. 73 companies participated, which we thought was a phenomenal response. Last year, 130 companies participated, and at this stage last year in our application cycle, I think we had about 40 companies signed up. So here we are, you know, this year with as Jill says, nearly 100 companies already signed up. So it promises to be a bumper year, and that's fantastic, because the more people who participate, the greater the quality of the benchmarking and the greater the depth of that sectoral benchmarking as well. So you can see where your competitors are. And the 5% Club, you know, has historically been a lot of construction companies, but actually we've got lots of people from lots of different sectors now fairly well represented in the audit. That's all covered in the summary report we just issued. But actually, you know, we're quite excited moving forward. And like I say, it's a really straightforward process. It's very comprehensive, and most importantly, it's cheap and easy to complete. And that will be the hallmark of this process. We want, because we're a charity, to give you as much as we possibly can for the minimum cost and time investment on your part.
Brilliant. That's it, Mark. No more questions have gone into chat, and no one has a hand raised, I don't think. So I think that's
excellent. Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. And you know, if we don't see you before, we'll see you at some of our forthcoming events, which are all on our website. I don't know if you're going to go out with those events as well, Jill, but you know, and we look forward very much to seeing your data, seeing you participate, and seeing you at the celebration event and symposium. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, and do let us know if you've got any questions.